about everything that I normally don't get to talk about on my regular sports podcast, Barbershop Sports Talk, which you guys can all find on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, the whole 9 yards there. And thank you, everybody, for who is tuning in via Twitter/Periscope, Facebook Live, and YouTube. Had a great podcast that I did yesterday with Kenny Simon, scouting expert for 247 Sports, and we recapped since there was nothing to recap, right? So for after every week of NFL action, me and Kenny we dive into what happened that Sunday because we record Sunday night. That Sunday of NFL action, since there was nothing to discuss, right? Since the Pro Bowl did not happen this year, what we did is we did our own NFL awards. So we gave our own personal awards. We went by position. We did some other fun stuff, most iconic moment, most entertaining players, some stuff like that. Also, we dived into the Senior Bowl. We talked about that. And also what we dived into is we talked a lot about Deshaun Watson and Matthew Stafford as well. So definitely check that out. Now, we got a jam-packed show today on Outside the Shop. We're going to talk about Deshaun Watson. We're going to get into Matthew Stafford, Green Bay. They're going to keep Aaron Rodgers the Patriots way. So a lot of good and interesting stuff to talk about. So first, here where I want to go. Deshaun Watson. So reportedly right now, Deshaun Watson and his camp, they are denying that Deshaun has said he will not show up to camp. Reportedly, that's what it's been said, but Deshaun's camp is denying those reports. I think what we are now seeing, we're seeing a cat and mouse game. I think we're seeing people in the Texans organization leak that Deshaun doesn't want to be here. Deshaun's not going to show up to camp, and Deshaun's kind of trying to keep the good credit, keep the press on his side, right? The fans and everybody else, the media. And Deshaun's kind of like, I never said that I won't show up. We are entering a very ugly situation. When I had Kenny on my podcast, what we talked about is, where are we going with this? Because here's the thing. Here's the thing with this situation with Deshaun Watson. He has a 5-year contract, and then in the NFL, you can franchise for 3 years. So theoretically, the Houston Texans could hold Deshaun Watson in purgatory for 8 years. Deshaun Watson has, on his side, in terms of leverage, he has a no-trade clause. So who blinks first in this shootout? Like, can Deshaun really wait out? Is Deshaun really just, he's 25, he's going to wait till he's 33 and be like, okay, F you guys? Like, where are we going with this? I think this is going to be one of the most interesting storylines of this NFL season, what happens with Deshaun Watson. So next up, Matthew Stafford for Jared Goff, Rams, Lions. So here's the crazy thing, and I'm going to get this. So they traded Matthew Stafford to the Rams, and the Lions got back two firsts, and a third. And let's mention this, folks. Jared Goff is a number 1 overall pick as well, and he went to a Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams. So the fact that they would do all that, and by the way, Matthew Stafford's like 35, they would give up 2 firsts and a third just to get Matthew Stafford. That shows you Sean McVay, Les Snead, the Rams brass, they were out on Jared Goff. A big tell was during the playoff game against the Seattle Seahawks when Jared Goff didn't start. He came off the bench. John Wolford started, who's an undrafted guy from like Wake Forest. That tells you a lot with your coach, with your GM, what they think about you. And I think it even shows more to think about him. The fact that they would give him away and they'd give up the first rounders. Like, hey, we'll give you the first rounders. We just want to get rid of Goff. We don't think he is good enough. But for the Rams, I think this takes the Rams to the next level. Matthew Stafford to me is a tier above Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff is closer to being the 20th best quarterback in the NFL. I think Matthew Stafford is closer to being a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. We know Sean McVay. Sean McVay is one of the best play callers in the NFL. He's able to get wide receivers open. He's able to formulate a running game. He's able to put his quarterback in the best position to succeed. I think the last 4 years, it's been smoke and mirrors with Jared Goff. I'm not saying Jared Goff's not a good quarterback. I'm not saying he doesn't have talent. But what I'm saying about Jared Goff is, I think in terms of he's 20th. He's 20th in the NFL. He's solid. You can win with him, but I think there's a limit to his physical ability. Matthew Stafford is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL. He still has a great arm, and he's had the awful luck of being with Detroit, who's been one of the worst organizations in the NFL. So I think the Rams are going to be a possible contender in the NFC next year. And in terms of all these trade rumors, and I do want to say this because this is what Jared Goff's camp put out. And you can tell that this is from Jared Goff's camp because they're saying, hey, the Lions wanted him. A bunch of other teams were calling for Jared Goff. Listen, folks, like I said, like that's not true. That's not true. People don't want you when your team that drafted you number 1 overall, they gave you a long-term extension. They're getting rid of you and they're shipping off first-round picks. That means they don't want you. That means they don't like you. So I think that's just PR spin by Jared Goff and his team, his agent, and his people. So I do want to talk about this. So there were a lot of, when Matt Stafford rumors were going on, and obviously now Matt Stafford's with the Los Angeles Rams, a lot of teams were inquiring about him. I think it's interesting to look at these teams that were acquiring about him. One of these teams were the Rams, because all these teams, they're looking for somebody else. They're looking for a new date to the dance, similarly to how the Rams were looking for a new date to the dance. And I think it shows a lot about how you feel about your quarterback when you're flirting with other people, right? So we have the Patriots, we have the Colts, we have the Panthers, we have the 49ers, and we have the Rams, and we have the Washington football team, all teams that were looking at the possibility of Matthew Stafford. That doesn't show a great thing about when we look at some of these quarterbacks. The Colts, right? Jacoby Brissett is there. Jacoby Brissett, they're probably not going to try to go into the season with him as the starter, right? The Panthers, the Patriots, Cam Newton, sorry, you had a good run, Cam. Jared Stidham, obviously Bill and Josh McDaniels don't have that much faith in you. The San Francisco 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo, which is kind of close to being a Jared Goff, Los Angeles Rams situation. Obviously, they don't have faith in him. So I think it shows how some of these organizations don't have faith in their quarterbacks. And some of these teams have put high equity into their quarterbacks. So now we're going to this. The Green Bay Packers, so their GM came out and said about Aaron Rodgers, because obviously there was talk about Aaron Rodgers. Would he stay in Green Bay? Would he stay in Green Bay? Aaron said his future is a beautiful mystery. He said he doesn't know. He said nothing is guaranteed in the NFL. This is what their GM came out and said. He's our quarterback. He's our leader. Head coach of the Green Bay Packers, Matt LaFleur, said, is that a trick question? Absolutely, Aaron's going to stay and be our QB. And, this is classic backpedaling. When there's all these reports, you draft Jordan Love, you kind of show that you don't really want the guy, right? And then when it turns out he's saying, hey, I might leave, I don't know, I'm feeling nothing's guaranteed, then they're like, oh, Aaron, we love you so much. You know what this is? This is simping. And all of you guys, people listening, you have that friend in your friend group that keeps simping to a girl, and he keeps we all have that friend. We all have that friend that just simps. That just simps. And that's what the Packers are doing now. They're simping to Aaron Rodgers because they know they effed up. They know that Jordan Love will never on his best day be better than Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was an MVP of this, is going to be an MVP when the NFL awards are on Saturday. Aaron Rodgers will win MVP of this league. Had a great year and was the second best quarterback, in my opinion, in all of football, only to Patrick Mahomes, who we might think Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT. So given all that, and now they're just coming back and they're saying, oh, Aaron's absolutely going to be here. I think that's just a lot of BS, and they're just trying to do damage control because they know they messed up. They know what they have in Aaron Rodgers, right? He's special. There's not a lot of Aaron Rodgers out there. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, right? Josh Allen is great. Josh Allen is an Aaron Rodgers. Never has been, and he might never will be. And Josh Allen threw for like 40 touchdowns this year. That's how great Aaron Rodgers is. Also, what I think this shows is the incompetence of the Green Bay organization. You might, if you're going to keep Aaron the next 3-4 years, you're going to have to get rid of Jordan Love, which means you wasted a first-round pick. Bad organizational move. So Matthew Stafford, when all this trade stuff was going on, he specifically mentioned he did not want to be traded to the New England Patriots. And I think what's interesting about this is, and some of the reasons were Matt Patricia, Bill Belichick, the Patriots way, the no-nonsense mentality. And I'm mentioning that because Danny Amendola came out, and when they asked him about the Patriots way, what Amendola said, it's not Belichick, it's Brady. And I think what this gets into kind of the argument of, a lot of people don't like New England. Maybe a lot of players don't play in New England. Maybe the reason players played in New England, right? We saw people like a Randy Moss go there. It wasn't necessarily because of Bill Belichick. It wasn't the allure. It was because Tom Brady was there, right? When you're having a rough day of practice, Bill Belichick is bitching out in front of everybody. You have Tom Brady put his hand over your shoulder and like, okay, man, it's going to be okay. Just the leadership, I think, that Brady showed in New England just to keep everything stable. Because here's the thing. When you run a dictator environment like how it is in New England, you got to have people of high caliber in that organization that people respect vouching for you. So the fact that Bill Belichick could do all this crazy stuff, do all this stuff that might not be fair to guys like Malcolm Butler, right? He just inexplicably decides not to play Malcolm Butler in the Super Bowl. But when you have a guy like Tom Brady, a Hall of Famer, most people think he's the greatest player of all time to ever play the game of football. When you have him putting his hand over your shoulder and say, man, it's okay, just keep working. It happens. We all have to deal with it. I think that helps keeps the stability in the Patriots organization. And when you lose that in Tom Brady, it gets rid of the stability. So I think the Patriots, I think we have to start looking at this. Bill Belichick gets all the credit in the world for putting this culture together, but for keeping it together, Keeping it intact is Tom Brady. Because I'll tell you something, a star player can ruin your culture. Look at the NBA. Look at James Harden. We can look at a lot of examples. Look what Deshaun Watson's kind of doing right now and how it's kind of seeping through the Houston Texans organization. A great quarterback can ruin your culture. A superstar athlete can ruin your culture. A coach can set it up. But in terms of your culture holding, a player can get rid of that like super quick. And lastly, where I want to go is this. So the Senior Bowl happened. For those of you who don't know, the Senior Bowl, it's a game where all the seniors that played in college football get to play and showcase their skills that we could practice. They go against each other. So Kellen Mond, quarterback at Texas A&M, won MVP of the Super Bowl. But what I think is more interesting is Mac Jones, quarterback from Alabama. They apparently had a really great week. I think he was the best quarterback. A lot of reports and people that were there said that, but he did not get to play in the game due to the fact that he believed he had an ankle injury, and obviously he didn't want to test it because the game, like, it's a meaningless game. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But something, as I've been doing over this weekend, I was watching a lot of games of Alabama. Just for the draft, and just as we're going to start having to talk more about the NFL draft. And in terms of Mac Jones being a star quarterback in the NFL, folks, to me, it is crazy that people are saying Mac Jones out of Alabama is a late first rounder. He's just not. Almost every touchdown that he throws is open. It's open. DeVonta Smith. There aren't people within 5 feet of him, without 5 feet of him. It's one read, two read. My third read is my safety valve, Najee Harris, coming out of the backfield. Najee Harris runs over 4 guys and gets into the end zone. That's the toughest throw Mac Jones is having to make in Alabama. They're always ahead of the sticks. They're able to run the ball. They're using play action all the time. And teams, they have to respect the play action because Alabama, they're so dominant and there's never any pressure in his face. And Mac Jones has a nice arm. Good kid, leader. Obviously, he knows what he's doing. He's smart. He's not an idiot. Good character kid. Got a lot better from last year. But him being a late first rounder is BS. It's asinine. If you draft Mac Jones in the first round, you're an idiot. And people have been saying that the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick, they should draft Mac Jones in the first round. No, you don't. You can take a chance on Trey Lance, who has extreme physical ability. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, even the kid Kyle Wilson from BYU. Even Kyle Trask, I think, is better. Mac Jones, you cannot do that. Mac Jones is a second, third round pick, probably a high-level backup. Maybe he could be a starter in the best case of scenario. But I saw nothing this year that would make me think Mac Jones will be a starter. And also the thing about this, too, is he could have stayed another year to up his draft stock. The fact that he left maybe shows that maybe he can't beat out the quarterback. They have a top 5-star quarterback. There was going to be kind of competition between him and that quarterback last year, and he actually ended up winning it. But maybe he didn't want to come back. You know, you never know what's going to happen. But I think maybe Mac Jones is more smoke and mirrors. And lastly, since there was no Pro Bowl, I want everybody's opinion on this. And please leave a comment about this with the Pro Bowl. Please leave a comment about this. Would you guys all be okay, instead of seeing this annual Pro Bowl game where these players don't really try to play, we saw one-on-ones. So what I mean by a one-on-one, if you ever played football, it'd be like for the offense and defensive line. You have them both go against each other and see who wins. So an example of this is we get to see Aaron Donald, the best defensive tackle in football, versus Quentin Nelson for the Indianapolis Colts, the best guard in football, and see them both go at it. Or in terms of cornerbacks, Stephon Diggs. You can see Stephon Diggs versus Jalen Ramsey. Or you can see, you can do Oklahoma, the old Oklahoma drill where you have 2 offensive linemen, 2 defensive linemen, and you have a running back and a linebacker, and then you see who wins. I think stuff like that would be a lot more interesting and a lot more fun, and I think players would go full speed. Because obviously, if you have Aaron Donald versus Quentin Nelson on live TV and they're doing one-on-ones, they're going to want to freaking win. They're going to want to bust the other ones. You know what? Like they're alphas, they're guys, they're competitive. Like, if the testosterone's going to be flowing, they're obviously going to want to win. So I think that would be really interesting. So I want everybody's comment on this, and I really want people to comment. Would you like to see, instead of seeing, the game, because we know players don't try, they'll half-ass it, they'll loaf around. If we can see one-on-ones, I think that'd be really interesting. Everybody, thank you for tuning into this edition of Outside the Shop. Also, a little preview for the podcast that we're going to be releasing on Wednesday. I'm going to have someone who covers the Alabama Crimson Tide on, and we're going to delve kind of into Alabama's championship year. So if you find that interesting, be on the lookout for that. Also, we're going to get some NBA talk in as well, and that's going to be on the next episode. And like I said, also check out the episode that I did yesterday with my guy Kenny Sims, scouting expert for 247 Sports, where we talked about the Senior Bowl. We did our own NFL awards personally, and we really deep dived into this Matt Stafford, Jared Goff, and Deshaun Watson and all that drama that's going on with those franchises. So definitely check that out. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Daryl Lane. I post clips from my podcast on there, and I upload this show to there as well. Have a great day, and God bless.